A pleasure to have you with us here on MLB Tonight alongside DJ Dan. Dan, please second Matt and Dan Burke. It's great to have you with us. I've not seen my friend since the World Series. Fantastic job out there in LA.
The big question is, did you get a qualifying offer today?
Thankfully for one more year still.
Okay, good.
Good question, Zach. That is indeed, Dan is right, what we're talking about today, because the qualifying offers have been announced. They've been set. So the free agent market is set, as we know. And, of course, the major news involves Garrett Cole, the New York Yankees. By the way, big-time guest coming up. Bob Costas, who is celebrating as he retires after 42 years of doing play-by-play. And Roy Wood, who will be hosting the MLB Awards in Las Vegas. Very fun interview. That's coming up here on MLB Tonight. All right, to Garrett Cole we get. Here's a tweet from Jeff Passan. Right here, Garrett Cole is remaining with the New York Yankees on the 4-year, $144 million deal that he had opted out of. Discussions on a potential contract extension will continue. Essentially, it's the same as if Cole did not opt out. So to follow this, the story was if he got the opt, if he opts out of his contract, which was left, and they picked up one more year at $36 million, they're good. But instead, Cole decides to just opt out of the opt-out. He keeps his contract, and they'll get the extension done. Your reaction?
The Yankees had to do this. It was a late start to the year. June 9th, he's made his debut. He had some issues with that elbow, delayed in spring training. Game 5 was as good as I've seen him since he injured that elbow. Everybody knows about that horrific 5th inning for the Yankees. He's been their ace, 2023, reigning AL Cy Young Award winner. Small sample size, but you look at the career with the Yankees, pretty good, right? 3.112 ERA, 759 innings, and the K per 9, 10.8. So he's still delivering the goods.
And this year is an up and down year, Zach. 95 innings. He didn't pitch till June 19th. Still had 99 strikeouts, 3.41 ERA, and he hit 99 in the playoffs, which is good to see. But how would you evaluate this year overall?
Well, when it started in June, it was almost like he was having an extended spring training. His start was delayed. His throwing program was delayed. It wasn't the same Garrett Cole. Here's a fastball right here, 91 miles an hour, and that's in the first inning. Breaking ball didn't have a lot of life, didn't have a lot of depth to it. The velo was down. You know, when he's throwing good, he's not going to be, 90, 91. I thought this was his best start right before the postseason in Oakland. Complete game. He went 9 innings, gave up 1 run. Velo started to climb back up, 94, 95, but it had some life on it. You fast forward that to Game 5. This was the best I've seen Garrett Cole since 2023. Had that remarkable, could have gotten out of that 5th inning, but I'll tell you what I like. Came back out in the 6th and the 7th inning. He was still throwing bullets. This was a move the Yankees had to make. Too many concerns with that starting rotation, right? Carlos Rodon's been kind of up and down. Luis Gil's had some injury problems. Nestor Cortez injury problems. Clark Schmidt's had some history problems. And so I think when you have a lot of guys on your rotation, you're banking on them all being heavy. But you have to bank on that one guy that's going to be the ace of your staff. They could ill afford to have him leave. Because I don't know out there on the market, there's some good pitchers. Blake Snell comes to mind. Corbin Burns comes to mind. But I think you know what you're going to get. And a lot of guys want to play for the Yankees. They want a chance to play for the bright lights, see what it's like. It's not for everybody. He's made to pitch for the Yankees.
And that's what's fascinating, because he's entering his age 34 season. So the 4 years, 144, but who knows? Maybe they could sign a deal in which he's with the Yankee for the next 7 years, 8 years. Take him up till 40, and he can be a guy in Yankee pinstripes for the rest of his career.
You know, that famous picture when he was a child down the foul line there in Anaheim, Yankee fan forever. His children had that sign out when he started Game 5 of the World Series. He's where he wants to be. I think he wants to end his career with the Yankees.
It certainly has been a great Yankee so far. In the meantime, other qualifying offers, in case you're curious who out there was given an offer today. So some notable names. Willie Adames was outstanding for the Brewers this season. Pete Alonso, of course, pending free agent with the New York Mets. Bregman, obviously has been a mainstay for the Astros. Burns, who Dan mentioned, who some say could get Garrett Cole-type money on the open market. Teoscar was awesome in his 1 year with the Dodgers. Minaya, Max Fried, of course, a couple pitchers. Nick Martinez, Pivetta, Santander's going to get big money as a slugger, which showed a lot of power. The Orioles, Severino, Juan Soto, as big a free agent as there is this offseason, and Christian Walker as well. By the way, a few notable names who did not get qualifying offers: Walker Buehler, Gleyber Torres, Paul Goldschmidt, Jurickson Profar. So these are the notable offseason dates. November 19th, qualifying offer. 4 Eastern is the acceptance deadline. November 22nd is the non-tender deadline, and December 11th is the Rule 5 draft. So your thought at all, Dan, the fact that some of those guys, as I mentioned, did not get qualifying offers, notably World Series hero Walker Buehler. What's your reaction?
Well, I look at it this way. Injury history. I think that's the thing with Walker Buehler, right? The Dodgers really went into July, into August and early September. They weren't sure which Walker Buehler they were going to get, right? He was on the struggle bus when he came back. Velocity was down. The curveball wasn't as good. But if you have any doubt that he's back, his postseason performance, each start he got better. And in Game 5, he did something. I give him a lot of credit. There aren't a lot of guys that are pending free agents that'll take the ball. You know, there's Josh Hader comes to mind, a guy that's like, I'm not pitching multiple innings.
Yep.
You know, I'm not going to take the chance to risk injury. Coming off his second Tommy John surgery, went up to Dave Roberts before the game, says, I'll be available. Went down in the 7th inning, pitched arguably the biggest inning of their season. Made that relief thing look really easy, too.
Right.
So if you're looking at this as a team going, hey, you know, I could maybe use this guy in the back end of the bullpen.
Yeah.
He's a starting pitcher, and I liked what I saw. The more the postseason went on, the better he got. He's going to get some offers.
Had only one win in the regular season, which is crazy. But as you said, he started Game 3 against the Yankees. 2 days later, gets the relief appearance. Sean Manaea is an interesting case here as well as far as that qualifying offer because, again, this is a guy who stepped up big time for the New York Mets. Who knows where he's going to end up?
Oh, he won't be taking that qualifying offer. I think his stock has just risen. Changed his arm angle. That low three-quarter arm angle looks a little bit like Chris Sale. There's going to be a robust market for Sean Manaea. His stock is going way up. Signed a 2-year deal with an option. He opted out of that, gets a qualifying offer. He'll get that qualifying offer times 3 or 4, so I don't see him taking the offer.
Right, doesn't just want the 1 year, wants multiple years at this point. We'll see what transpires as we can see. Meantime, we continue here on MLB Tonight. Honestly, lots more to come here because after the break, the market is set. GM meetings are underway. We'll hear from JP Morosi and company after the break, but also we'll reflect later in the show on Bob Costas as we got him joined by Tom Bertucci in Studio 42 talking about his illustrious career. MLB Tonight resumes down in San Antonio, Texas. The general managers are starting to come on down. JP Morosi, John Heyman, and Joel Sherman tell us what to expect now that the market is set. Take it away, fellas.
Adnan, thank you very much. Big news on day 1 of the GM meetings. Garrett Cole stays in the Bronx. John, what happened over the last couple of days that made that so?
Well, I think ultimately this was the right decision for all involved. Garrett Cole obviously wanted to stay a Yankee. We saw that sign, Forever a Yankee, when he was, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old, and he still feels that way. So I think it's a good result for both sides. Obviously, the Yankees are happy to get it done and keep the existing contract. Whether they do extend him in the future, that's still open for question. They could do that. I think there was a little bit of a hesitancy to do that now when there isn't time for a medical to be done. So I think this was ultimately the right move for both sides. He wanted to stay. They wanted to keep him. They love having their stars. They keep him. They obviously have Judge. They have one more big star to perhaps keep that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, look, I think this was a bit of a game of chicken. The Yankees said we're willing to do what your pre-existing contract for at 144. Obviously, Cole opted out because he thought maybe they'd blink. They didn't blink. If you lose at $144 million, it's still a pretty good day. Would Cole have gotten this out on the market? Maybe, maybe not. But would he have gotten it in a place where he's comfortable both as a person living with his family and also comfortable? He's not won a World Series yet. It's part of his legacy, a team that has a shot to win. Who knows? So the marriage works. Will they ever do more money in the future? I would doubt that, but we'll see.
Joel, it's an excellent point on the World Series and that pursuit for Garrett Cole. Now, speaking of Yankees superstars, the one who's now a free agent, Juan Soto, what does Cole's contract mean for him?
Yeah, well, they might try to play chicken with Juan Soto. I think that would work in a different way because Juan Soto is going to play at 26 next year. He's going to have major suitors. I would assume that includes the team in Queens, the Mets. But I wonder if the Cole thing has shown the Yankees will have a number they won't go beyond. Like, in other words, we're willing to play the game of chicken for Cole. We're willing to play the game of chicken for Soto. And if you leave, you leave. Because I think the Yankees know in their soul, if this becomes we go to 500, you go to 525, we go to 550, you go to 575, they'll stop before Steve Cohen stops. So they might as well just have a number they'll stop at, and they're comfortable. And then the question is, does Soto want to actually leave?
Yeah, Yankees definitely will have a number that they are comfortable with. I mean, look at Aaron Judge. I mean, homegrown superstar, just set the American League home run record. The Yankees ended up matching the Giants' $360 million. The Padres would have gone higher. I'm not sure the Yankees would have. It seemed to be kind of a split decision that Hal Steinbrenner broke the tie or whatever it was below him. But the Yankees definitely do have their limits. Does Steve Cohen with the Mets have his limits? Do the Dodgers have their limits? I'm not so sure that they do. too. So, if he ends up wanting to go for the biggest bid, I don't think it's any guarantee that he remains a Yankee. I do believe he liked it there very much. I don't think he's quite as married to the Yankees as Gerrit Cole was, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this turns out.
Scott Boras and the Yankees worked on that Cole deal. Maybe there is still one more blockbuster deal for them in Juan Soto. We shall see. Day one of the GM meetings also includes the qualifying offer deadline. Joel, what stood out to you about the decisions made today?
Yeah, we saw Steve Cohen was able to flex his financial might a little bit, right? They offered the qualifying offer to Luis Severino, which I think was a bit of a question mark because let's say they thought he was worth 1 at 18. They could have him at 21. We'll see if they agree to something long term. The one that I was a bit surprised at, the one I didn't see coming, was Nick Pivetta with the Red Sox. And what I wonder for the Red Sox, does that mean if he takes that, is that their pitching move for the offseason? Or is it the beginning of the Red Sox acting like a big market team again and saying, okay, we'll throw 21 down for Pivetta and we're going to do more? I'm curious what it means for Boston big picture.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows the health of baseball that 14 players were offered a $21.05 million deal. That's a lot of money. Now, obviously, there were 8 superstars with Soto and Burns and Fried and Alonso and the others that were obvious, but there were 6 guys that I think there was some question about. I think the Mets made the right call, though, with Severino and Minaya. I don't see Minaya taking it, so they'll still negotiate with him, but that potentially gives them a draft choice. And I think it's probably true with Severino, too. Well, Minaya was basically an ace in the second half. Severino was really good this year, and I think $21 million is fairly reasonable for him on a 1-year deal. So I think he turns it down as well. I think the team's made the right calls, and it shows the health of baseball, which is a great thing.
The Red Sox are certainly one of the teams we're watching very carefully this week. Yes, the Pivetta decision. They also have 3 of the top 10 prospects in the entire industry, according to MLBpipeline.com. So Anthony, Meyer, Campbell, we'll see how they factor into the plans at Fenway next season. Adnan?
All right, JP, John and Joel, thank you so much, fellas. As the guys are talking about those qualifying offers, so 13 of them extended, 3 by the Mets. Gerrit Cole going to stay with the Yankees in his original deal. No extra year added, but they're working on an extension, allegedly. And some tough news here, unfortunately, for David Fry. It was a great story for the Guardians. He undergoes elbow surgery. That's an internal brace surgery, not quite Tommy John, but he's expected to return as a DH in 6 to 8 months, and then as a fielder in 12 months. He was an unlikely all-star and a good story for Cleveland this past year.
Did you know it was gone the instant you hit it? A pretty good idea.
After the break, we have the great Bob Costas joined by Tom Verducci in Studio 42 talking about his illustrious career, plus Roy Wood Jr. on all Great stuff there from Roy Wood. The All MLB Awards show presented by MGM Rewards will take place November 14th at Chelsea at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. The show is part of All MLB Weekend presented by MGM Rewards, which will also include a golf outing at Shadow Creek, where you could play with MLB players and legends. And we bring in the man rocking the mic, the MC himself, Roy Wood Jr. Roy, good to see you. Plenty of awards to be handed out.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Because you have all MLB first and second teams, in addition to the Hank Aaron Award. You've also got DH relievers, comeback player of the year awards. What are you most looking forward to under the bright lights of Las Vegas?
I'm looking forward to seeing the fans. You know, it was a great time last year in Vegas because so many fans of all the teams, and I don't even know what to compare it to in Major League Baseball. You know, like in spring training, when you bounce around from park to park and you meet all the fans, it's that, but all in one spot in one night. And it doesn't matter what your team's record is because the season's over with. So every fan is in a good mood. So it's going to be a good time, man.
Mookie Betts, Shota Imanaga, among the players in the attendance at the award show, both coming up. Incredible seasons. Paul Skeens going to be there as well. In fact, we're coming off of the most exciting regular seasons and postseasons in recent memory for the postseason. Upsets, the best Yankees, Dodgers. What moment stands out to you the most?
You got to give it to Freddie Freeman, man. You got to give it to Freddie. This man just stepped up and just started hitting balls. And then after he did all of that in the World Series, like 2 days later, there's a video of Freddie playing ball in the backyard with his boy.
Gotta keep this 8-year-old.
He jacked a wiffle ball into the forest. And I'm like, Freddie, you don't do that to your child. You're supposed to miss your child. But it was a very, very competitive postseason, man, and I'm very happy, you know, for Freddie and the Dodgers. It's like the Dodgers is like one of these teams where, even as a Cubs fan, I'm like, All right, man. Yeah, y'all earned it.
Okay.
Y'all played hard.
But you're not a hater then. So I think as a Cubs guy, you're anti-Dodgers.
You can't as a Cubs. You can't be a hater as a Cubs fan. As many hugs as I've received over the last 108 years from strangers. When I finally got mine, it was all handshakes and smiles. So I'm going to do the same thing for other teams.
Fair enough. Now, listen, you've got style both, obviously, when you're performing and also off-air. I want to know what you think specifically of Dave Roberts. We call him Doc. Did a dance with Ice Cube. Like, LA bringing up the stars. Ice Cube. What do you think of Dave Roberts' dance?
First off, Ice Cube can't dance. So why are we comparing Dave Roberts to Ice Cube? That's Ice Cube's move right there.
Right.
The two shuffle. I can't tell if Dave Roberts is the hype man.
Yeah, he is. He's the hype man. He's getting him exactly. That's exactly what he's done.
But to be fair, Dave Roberts has two parade energy. He got denied his parade back during the shutdown. And so now he's got two championships worth of energy that he had to get out of his system. Dave Roberts looked like Ice Cube's child. You ever seen a kid dance with their parent? You'd be like, get the kid off the stage. I paid tickets for a professional. By the way, Dave Roberts, I love you, big fan. If I see you in Vegas, I want to make sure you say hello. Please don't be mad at me.
Apparently, the video of Dave Roberts twerking as well, but we'll get to that later. Going back to the regular season, again, Imanaga's your guy, lights out. What did you see from a rookie Cubs pitcher that was so impressive to you?
I think one thing that's really so dope about a lot of the players that come from Japan is that because they have already played at peak level in their own country, it's different than seeing someone that comes up, which is what makes what Paul Skeens did so amazing in Pittsburgh.
Right.
But, you know, to see Schultz to just be so cool and calm, and no matter what the situation was, just throwing consistent strikes, having quality starts over and over and over again at a time where everybody's so quick to, you know, pull a starter after, 60, 70 pitches, 4 or 5 innings or whatever. So I'm hoping to see big things from him next year. I'm hoping, I wonder if Schultz can play the outfield as well, and maybe we can have a Shota Ohtani.
Your own version of Ohtani.
Yeah, we have a Shota.
Ohtani, a little bit of Showtime. Make it all work. Skeens will probably win Rookie of the Year, but Imanaga should be top 3. Finally, looking at it 2025, what's your spiciest take going to be for this upcoming season?
Whoever gets Soto gets to October, I think.
So if the Mets get him, they're going to the World Series.
The Mets were close already. You put that clutchness in there as well, I think you have something. A little bit of Soto, a little bit of grimace, and I think the Mets will be good to go.
Hopefully Las Vegas is a lot of fun, man.
It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. I think that all the fans should come out there and have a good time as well. You know, it's beautiful. And it's not just all of the current players. There's legends. I can't name all the names.
Okay.
But there are going to be a lot of OG legends in the building as well. So
that's awesome.
I'm going to be in there trying to kick it with all of them, man. That's the hardest part of being a fan of this sport.
Maybe we'll have video of you and like Ice Cube and Doc all together. Maybe it'll be.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe
I don't
not.
want to go viral like that. I'll leave that to Dave.
Join some MLB's brightest stars in Las Vegas. 2024 All MLB Weekend presented by MGM Rewards. Your 3-night stay will include a ticket to the exclusive All MLB Team Awards show November 14th, when the All MLB first and second teams will be announced live from the Chelsea Theater in the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. Learn more at MLB.com/All-MLB Weekend. Once again, thanks to our MC, Roy Wood Jr.
Dodger Stadium filling up before Game 1 of the 1988 World Series. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas along with Marv Albert. Thoughts and images that went through your mind as you rounded the bases?
Well, I just kept telling myself these are the type of circumstances you enjoy most, and you perform even better under these conditions.
Deep left center. Look out. Do you believe it? It's gone. To the wall. And what happens here? He contends that a fan reaches up and touches it. But Richie Garcia says no. The 0-1 pitch. A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series. Unleash all the superlatives. They all seem to apply.
Welcome to Studio 42 with Bob Costas, where, by the way, Bob, you've done some of your best work. But we are here to talk about the catbird seat.
Yeah.
In the booth, calling Major League Baseball games.
As Red Barber dubbed it, the catbird seat.
Exactly. And few have done it as well as you, have been as honored as you, have been as literate as you, calling this great game of baseball. So we want to talk about your career as a play-by-play broadcaster. And if I can, I use the analogy of another guy who's at the top of his craft, Sandy Koufax. Before the '66 season, Sandy Koufax knew that was going to be his last year playing Major League Baseball. He actually told Phil Collier, San Diego writer.
He kept the secret.
He kept it a secret. Literally kept the story in his desk drawer until after the season was over. So Sandy spent that year going around the league, smelling the flowers, if you will, knowing he wasn't going to pass that way again as a player. Did you have a Sandy Koufax moment before this year? When did it occur to you that this might be your last year calling baseball?
Not might. I knew for more than a year that this would be the end of it. You and I discussed it about a year and a half ago, and I felt that I couldn't consistently reach my past standard. There might have been individual games or stretches within games or moments in games that were just the same as if it was the 1990s or the early 21st century, but I couldn't string enough of them together, and I have too much regard for the game, for the craft, and for whatever my own standard has been to hit beneath my lifetime batting average, which is why I'm grateful to the MLB Network for replaying the sounds of baseball, because players have this advantage over people in almost any other profession. My guy, Mickey Mantle, hit well below his lifetime average his last few years. But even a kid who never saw him play can go to Baseball Reference and see what the career was like. And I just felt like in the last couple of years, I couldn't quite reach that. And what I hoped for this year, the people I worked for knew it, and a few other people knew it. I just hoped to end on a grace note.
Well, no doubt about that. I mean, greatness is the mark of your career going back to the beginning. Can we talk about the beginning, the very beginning, calling baseball? 1980.
Yep.
You're 28 years old.
And look like I was 14.
You get to call a Yankees-Tigers game, a good game. Tigers won 7-6. Did you know at that moment, Bob, that you were in the perfect place for you? That's where you belonged.
Yes. Yes. For all the things that I've been lucky enough to do, and I've appreciated all of them, the Olympics, the NBA, other things, baseball was always closest to my heart. And what I'm about to say in response to your question may seem corny. In the mid-1980s, I'm doing the Game of the Week with Tony Kubek, who I owe so much to. And Tony said, on Fridays, we're at Wrigley Field, so it was always an afternoon game then, there weren't any lights, sit behind the plate with the scouts. You'll get a lot of stuff from the scouts, who mattered more than pre-analytics. And there was a beloved legendary scout named Huey Alexander, who had lost his left hand in a farm accident or an oil rig accident of some kind, which derailed his promising baseball career. And I'm sitting behind the plate with him, and we're talking. And at one point he says, "Damn, Bobby, you're a baseball man." That meant everything to me. When I was a little kid listening to games on the car radio so I could track my dad's bets and pulling in Ernie Harwell from Detroit and Bob Prince from Pittsburgh and Harry Carey and Jack Buck from St. Louis, I dreamed of in some way being involved in baseball. And to have been involved as long as I have, and to have the appreciation that I had within the game for most of that time, I didn't want to diminish that. So it's time not to stop the other stuff, but it's time to stop calling the games.
You mentioned Tony Kubek.
Yeah.
You've had great partners over the years.
Yes.
I think probably you're most identified with Tony. You complemented one another so well. Your humor kind of elevated Tony. Tony's knowledge of the game elevated your calls. And it was a real big break for you starting out on the backup games. Michael Weissman hired you at NBC to do the backup games with Tony. I think he didn't understand at the time you had only done 4 baseball games in your life, 2 were in the minor leagues, and there you are off and running doing national Saturday games with Tony Kubek.
I learned on the job, but having Tony at my side was really important. And then after that, in the 90s, Bob Uecker and Joe Morgan. And then when I landed at the Baseball Network from the start in 2009, Jim Cott and John Smoltz and yourself and Ron Darling, last broadcast with him on TBS, Mark DeRosa for a few games, Dan Plesac. Grateful to all of them, but Kubek was probably the most important for me.
Let's talk about the Sandberg game.
Yeah.
Wrigley Field. That was the first game that WGN did not broadcast at Wrigley Field since, I think, 1948, because NBC then had exclusive rights. You were doing the backup game, but the main game was rained out. So now you and Tony have the complete national audience on NBC. And young fans today don't understand how big of a game Saturday Game of the Week was on NBC. And you wound up with an all-time game, making all-time great calls.
Well, the players used to call it the game of the world. They'd see me and Tony or Vin and Joe at the batting cage. We're the game of the world today. And there were some Saturday afternoon games that got higher ratings than some World Series games have gotten in this past year. Not Yankees-Dodgers, but some. So that's how big it was. And it turns out to be the signature game of a Hall of Fame career.
Let's listen in.
Tito Landrum playing Sandberg very deep in left field. Into left center field and deep. This is a tie ball game. 1-1 pitch. Sandberg, in the Cubs' last at-bat, has twice delivered a game-tying home run, a solo shot of the ninth, a two-run blast with 2 out of the 10th. There may be a new player of the game.
I love that, Bob, because, you know, it's like a great singer. You always need to leave some place to go to for the biggest moments.
Yeah.
But you didn't oversell it. I hear the excitement in your voice, but it's still about Sandberg more than it is about you.
Yeah, and it's television. You know, I've never been someone who's going to go to the very highest octave on a sacrifice fly in the 4th inning. There may be some people out there who now prefer that. That's never been my approach. You got to save something for the biggest moments, and that was one of the biggest ones. And something else occurs to me here. Jack Buck was just down the hallway with Mike Shannon because they were doing the Cardinal games on the radio. And Jack is one of the greatest of the great. You make a top 5 of all time, and Jack Buck is there. And toward the end of his life and career, he was getting older and he had Parkinson's. And he used to get laughs around St. Louis by saying, I gave the Cardinals the best years of my life, and now I'm going to give them the worst. And you could do that as a local announcer because they'll allow for that. You're beloved. You're their guy. I think for a national announcer, it's a different calculus.
And, of course, the biggest stage is the World Series.
Yeah.
Your first World Series, if I remember correctly, you were working the pregame show. This is 1982.
Yes, Cardinals-Brewers.
Right. What do you remember about that? And for you, as a kid growing up, I'm sure you watched and listened to all World Series games, that now you are actually working the World Series first time.
I had so much nervousness. Oh, my gosh, there I am. Whoa. I was so nervous, and the thing that helped me was it was in St. Louis, so I knew the Cardinals, and they were very welcoming to me. And the first 2 games were in St. Louis, so that helped a bit. And there were fans behind the Cardinal dugout, and I was standing on the first baseline to do the pregame show. And there's no teleprompter, ad-libbing all of it, which only increased the jitters. And someone said to me after the thing was over, and I put the microphone down, and I'm walking toward the dugout, and I was going to go through the dugout to get back upstairs. And I saw a guy that I knew. He wasn't involved in broadcasting. Hey, Bob, have you gotten the jitter dance behind you? Because apparently I was like jitterbugging all around. But when the light came on, I guess I was okay. And the other thing I remember about that game is that Vin Scully was doing it on CBS Radio. And Vin comes walking past me, and I said, excuse me, Mr. Scully, my name is Bob Costas. It's a pleasure to meet you. And he said, oh, Bob, I know who you are. You've done very well, and I'm sure there are greater things ahead. Well, at that point, I'm thinking, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I've lived a full life. Vin Scully thinks I'm okay.
Well, let's go ahead 6 years now to '88 World Series, showing off your repertorial chops in the Dodgers dugout. Of course, the Kirk Gibson game, game number 1. And you have an interview with Kirk Gibson after the game. Let's listen.
I guarantee you this, the parking lot at Chavez Ravine is empty. Nobody has left their seats, and now the man of the hour is back out on the field. Kirk Gibson, have you ever had a feeling like this?
Well, it's hard to match, I'll say that, and you know, it's I guess a storybook. I was very disappointed today because I knew I couldn't play. I knew I'd be a detriment, and I got an injection today, and I was very sore, but I saw the opportunity. I knew we could get a guy on base. The pitcher was coming up, and I figured if I got out there and the fans started cheering, that I could suck it up for 1 AB, and maybe something good would happen, and it happened.
You talk about all-star teams. The other sideline reporter was Marv Albert.
Right.
And in the booth, Vin Scully and Bob Uecker.
No, Garagiola.
Joe Garagiola, right. That is an all-star team.
And on the Gibson home run, you have 2 of the greatest calls in baseball history. Scully on television and Buck on the radio, I don't believe, what I just saw. There was a lot of broadcasting royalty there for sure.
And Tommy Lasorda gives you credit for motivating the troops.
Yeah. You know, Tommy would do anything, A, to get a laugh, and B, to, as you said, motivate the troops. And that's the only at-bat Gibson had in the whole series. And then shortly after that, Mike Marshall was sidelined too. So the Dodgers put a lineup out there that looked like a B squad in a spring training game. Their whole lineup had fewer home runs than McGuire and Canseco individually. So I said something to the effect of, Dodger pitching aside, and their pitching is excellent. And remember, they were up 2-1 at this point in the series. It was Game 4. And Hershiser was going to go the next day. So no one thought that they didn't have a shot. But I said this has to be one of the weakest lineups ever to take the field for a World Series game. True then, true now. Lasorda's in the visitors' clubhouse. He hears it. He sees it. See that guy? Even effing Costas doesn't think we have an effing chance. And Marv is interviewing Lasorda because he made so many moves in the game. Squeeze play, gave Mike Davis the hit sign on 3-0, and he homered. All kinds of maneuvers designed to make up for the talent deficit. So we name him the player of the game, and he says, this award should go to Bob Costas. So then I walk over, and he looks over and he goes, yeah, we'll call you again when we need you. It was all a joke, but it wasn't a joke to Tony La Russa, because now his favorite team is down 3-1. So before Game 5, I got to go up to La Russa and explain that it wasn't a setup. I wasn't in cahoots with Tommy. It's just who Tommy is. La Russa understood.
Well, it wasn't long before you were calling the World Series games yourself, doing play-by-play. I wanted to ask you about 1999 because yes. I thought the clinching game was kind of you at your best, because before the game you had written and voiced an essay, I think, about Roger Clemens and the moment that was had for the Yankees. Writing an essay like that, beautifully written, delivered perfectly, and then calling the game. And I thought putting the exact right cap on the end game here for the Yankees. Let's listen in.
A pop in the shadow left. The New York Yankees, world champions, team of the decade, most successful franchise of the century.
Well, that's hitting the right notes.
That's a good closing caption, yes. But sometimes being a perfectionist will cost you sleep. That wasn't shallow left, it was medium left. Still bothers me.
Perfectionist as always.
The thing that resonates at the end is I'm okay with that.
I've always thought, Bob, that it's like great art needs a curator. You go to a museum, you need the right lighting, you need the right frame around it. It's the same thing for me with a baseball game. Someone like you, to put the right frame around the moment, is what adds to the beauty of the moment. Is that what you saw your job as a play-by-play person? Not to overcome the game, but to enhance the game?
Yeah, that was the idea. Once you get the nuts and bolts down, then you can add some of the little grace notes, if that's the right way to put it, and the proper captions, especially in the biggest moments. You want to write a good caption beneath the picture. You know, I mentioned this in my Hall of Fame speech a couple of years ago, 6 years ago now. Kirk Gibson still says, and every time I've crossed paths with him, he says this, I remember that moment, that pinch hit home run off Dennis Eckersley, half because of the way it felt when I did it, and half because of Vin Scully's call and Jack Buck's call. So when a broadcaster can rise to the occasion, it not only shapes how it feels in the moment, it shapes how it resonates down the corridors of time.
Well, Bob, hopefully we can be like Ernie Banks and Let's Play 2. I think we're going to do a second segment because we still need to talk about your years here at MLB Network. We'll do that right after this.
There we go.
Over to you, Adnan.
Great stuff, Tom and Bob. Now we turn to the new century and Bob's career here at MLB Network. More from Bob and Tom. What a great combo. It continues after this. You're watching MLB Tonight as we're reflecting on the greatness of Bob Costas, saying farewell to the play-by-play game after 42 years. He's been doing this for 40-plus years. He's called 3 World Series. Of course, the Ford C. Frick Award winner, enshrined in the Hall of Fame 6 years ago. He is a 29-time Emmy Award winner and an MLB Network play-by-play announcer and host since 2009. The inaugural Bob Costas continues with the great Tom Verducci.
Thanks, Adnan. I don't know about you, Bob, but if I was a kid and somebody told me there was going to be a new channel, 24/7 baseball, I was like, where do I sign up?
Absolutely.
You, I believe, were the first one hired here at the network. When you first heard about this idea and approach to join MLB Network, what'd you think?
Tell you how I felt about it. I was willing to leave HBO Sports, which was the gold standard in its own way of that kind of sports coverage, because HBO said, we want you to stay, but you can't be on 2 cable networks at the same time. And it would only be baseball that would get me to walk away from HBO. And the very first thing, January 1st, 2009, we had discovered the full kinescope of Don Larson's Perfect Game. And neither he nor Yogi Berra had seen it since 1956. And we had them here in Studio 42. They were watching it for the first time. And the voices were Mel Allen and the young Vin Scully.
Well, you've been a student of baseball history and often called history in real time. And here at the network, one of our biggest nights was Derek Jeter's last game at Yankee Stadium, playing the Baltimore Orioles. Let's listen to that famous call.
Jeter has 1 plate appearance against Evan Meek, and he walked. A base hit to right. Here comes Richardson. They're waving him home. The throw is close, but he scores. On a walk-off hit by Derek Jeter. It wasn't just what he did. It was the way he did it. From the beginning to the very end.
You know, it's a funny thing, baseball being a storyteller's game. Derek Jeter so impolitely swung at the first pitch because I was about to say, you know, so often the bold-faced names in big moments intersect with guys who have just been bit players. I didn't know this at the time. That was the last pitch Evan Meek ever threw in the major leagues. Antoine Richardson had pinch run. He was at second base. That was the last run he ever scored in the major leagues. Bit players, but on the same stage as a guy who was always center stage for his entire career. Now, Kirk Gibson had the good grace to go 3-2 on Eckersley, which let Vin Scully do all the unparalleled Vin Scully things. But Jeter was impatient. He hit the first pitch.
They say great players like Derek Jeter can slow the game down. For a broadcaster, Bob, you've had so many of these moments where you absolutely nailed it and then add the perfect grace note on the back end of it. What enables you to come through in those moments as a broadcaster?
I think once I had the nuts and bolts down, and any good broadcaster has to be able to dot the I's and cross the T's, then you can bring to bear the influences. Not that you want to imitate anybody, but you can be influenced by them. I was influenced by Vin Scully. I was influenced by essayists like Jack Whitaker and Jim McKay. I was influenced by reading Roger Angell and Roger Kahn. I just knew that there was something about the game, a kind of romance, mythology, but beyond that, generational connections, that those moments deserved something more than just the bare-boned facts. And I think for a long time I could do that. And then toward the end, I felt I couldn't do it quite as well. And I just thought that it was time to wrap it up.
So many years, so many games. There's usually always tomorrow another game. This time, your last game with TBS, there was not another game to call. Let's listen to your sign-off for your last game for TBS.
I haven't heard this.
Run over more than 40 seasons, involved in the game that I love more than any other. I've been so lucky with the people I've worked with Tony Kubek, and with Bob Uecker and Joe Morgan, and later with John Smoltz and Tom Verducci and others at the Major League Baseball Network, and now most recently with you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
Our final score tonight, the Yankees 3 and the Royals 1.
I forgot to mention Jim Cott, and Jim was as close in terms of the way it felt to Tony Kubek. He and I, in the early days of the Baseball Network, I thought were a good combination, and somehow I forgot to mention him there, so I'm mentioning him twice here.
How difficult was it to get through that?
You know, I felt a little catch in my throat, but I knew that I was wrapping it up. I wanted the series to go 5. Contrary to what some people think, a national broadcaster, if he's any good, isn't really rooting for either side. Fans of both teams hear the same words and perceive a bias. But I did want it to go the limit, and I did want it to end at Yankee Stadium. That would have been more classic, but it didn't turn out that way. So it was fine.
You've done so many things so well over the years. The Olympics, other sports, interviewing, but calling baseball games, play-by-play. I always thought that's what you did the absolute best. Nobody did it better. Thank you on behalf of all baseball fans.
Thank you, Tom. You've been a great partner, sometimes in the booth and sometimes here with the Greatest Games series and other things. And I think that our sensibility, to a certain extent, overlaps the way we see the game and the way we see that words matter. Not just functional words, but words that have a little touch of elegance to them. That's what you strive for.
Well said, as usual. Back to you, Adnan.
All right, Tom, Bob, great stuff. As we continue to celebrate Bob Costas, we take a look at his more unique calls during his career. MLB Tonight resumes.
こちらまでご視聴いただき、心から感謝いたします。本日の試合は、私たちチームにとって大きな意味を持つ感動的な勝利となりました。皆さんとこの瞬間を共有できることが私たちにとって何よりも嬉しいことです。今日の試合では選手たちが最後まで諦めずに全力を尽くし、見事なチームワークを見せてくれました。その姿に胸が熱くなり、チームの一員であることを誇りに思います。今回の勝利はまさにファンの皆さんの応援と支えがあったからこそ成し遂げられたものでした。試合中、スタンドやテレビの前から送られる皆さんの声援が選手たちの力となり、困難な場面でも一歩前に進む勇気を与えてくれました。選手たちの中には、苦しいトレーニングや怪我と戦いながらも決して諦めなかったものが多く、彼らの努力がこうして結果として実を結んだことは本当に感慨深いです。そして何よりチーム全体が一丸となり、それぞれの役割を果たしながら成し遂げたこの勝利は、彼らが日頃から持ち続けてきた強い意志と情熱の証でもあります。今日の試合のハイライトの一つは、最後の瞬間に見せた驚異的なプレーの数々です。ベンチからも選手たちの熱気が伝わり、スタジアムは一瞬で歓声の渦に包まれました。この試合は決して簡単なものではありませんでしたが、一つ一つのプレーが積み重なり、最後には歓喜の瞬間を迎えることができました。勝利の瞬間に流した涙、互いに抱き合って喜ぶ姿、そしてそのすべてが今日の試合の価値を物語っています。選手たちの喜び、そしてその裏にある苦しみや葛藤がこの試合で一気に解放されたのです。また、この勝利はチーム全体だけでなく、私たちのコミュニティ全体の勝利でもあります。皆さんが応援し続けてくださるおかげで、選手たちは日々成長を遂げ、困難に立ち向かうことができています。特に今シーズンは厳しい状況の中でスタートしたものの、ファンの皆さんの応援が大きな励みとなり、こうして力強く前進し続けることができました。私たちはこの瞬間を皆さんと共に分かち合い、これからも一緒に戦い続けることを誓います。この動画を見て、一緒に感動を味わっていただけたなら、いいねを押していただけると嬉しいです。また、他のファン仲間にも、この喜びをシェアして、皆さんが感じたことや試合の感想をコメント欄に書き込んでください。選手たちにとって、皆さんからの応援メッセージがどれだけ力になるかは計り知れません。さらに、登録ボタンをクリックしていただければ、次の試合のハイライトや舞台裏の様子、そして選手たちの熱いストーリーをお届けします。私たちはこれからも皆さんと一緒に感動の瞬間を作り出し、思い出を積み重ねていきたいと思っています。さあ、これからも共にチームを応援し、さらなる勝利を目指していきましょう。